Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to continue with our series on working with agentic AI systems. So in the last video, we have looked at how to work with short-term memory and how to handle manage short-term memory using running summaries. So in this video, we're going to take this a bit further. So we're going to work with making the memory to be persistent because the previous videos when you talk about memory, we were basically working with memory on disk. It wasn't persistent once you shut down the notebook, and then if you set again, that memory is lost, right? So how do we make it persistent? How do we maybe connect to a database and then have our memory be stored in a database so that later on when the user even resumes the chat, we can just load in that thread ID and then retrieve all the previous conversation history, right? So that's really good for if you're trying to build a production application or something like that. That's really what you need to do. So this is just a course overview. Again, we are the things that a lot of things are going to be changing. So we've looked at how to work with simple agents, and now we are moving all the way to work with messages. Okay, so we are working with short term and long term memory. So in the next part, we'll go into human in the loop implementation and see how we can introduce human in the loop. So the things in this outline might change because I want things always changing, and I want this course to have the latest things as much as possible. Okay. Okay, so now that's the recap of the previous video. Is just what I talk about, managing short-term memory using running summaries. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and install a couple of things and then connect to an SQLite database, creating checkpointers, and then basically create a graph that we're going to demo with, okay, on how to make our memory more persistent using an SQLite database. And I'm going to test everything out and make sure that everything works perfectly. Okay, so and then I think that I've talked about the last video, the recap of the last videos, right? So now let's go ahead and install some packages we need to get this working. So to install these packages, I have this right here. So let me copy that. Okay, now this is actually, let me get this persistent, not persistent. Okay, persistent. Okay, now once I have this out of there, let me just copy this. Basically this installation command that you're going to be using to install a couple of packages. So I'm going to simply copy it, and I'm going to go in here, create a simple markdown, and let's give it a title. This is going to be external persistent memory. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste what I've copied and then run this. Okay, this needs to be a Python, so a Python cell. So make sure it's a Python cell, and we need to go ahead and select the right Python environment to install this. So once we have this, I'm going to go ahead and press a Shift and Enter on my keyboard to have that installed. Again, this also needs to be a Python cell. Okay, so this is going to take a bit of time, and it's going to go ahead and install these checkpointers for us. So these specific things. Okay, and if you want, I'm going to leave a link to the GitHub repository that has this notebook, and we can use it. Okay, so that's it. So once we have that installed, we need to go ahead and create an SQLite database connection to establish a connection between an SQLite database that we'll be using to persist our memory. Okay, so to do that, you need to go ahead and import SQLite, which is already comes with Python, so you don't have to install anything. So let me just say connecting to is going to be uh, connecting connecting to okay, okay, let me get that right. So SQLite DB. So we should have the SQLite package imported. Once we have that imported, we're going to go ahead and use this right here. So I'm going to use an in-memory store. So this is an in-memory. So if you place colon and then memory and then colon again, that's an in-memory store. Okay, so you can also use a file storage, or you can also use a file storage if you want to actually to store a file in here. Okay, so you can actually pass this part of that file instead of this. But for now, let's start with short-term, an in-memory database so that you can just have an experience of how that is. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, and now I'm going to go ahead and actually create an actual file database. So if you look in here, let me just open my sidebar. You can see I have no file at the moment called langchain db. Well, let me change it to be langgraph db, right? So I have no file in here called langgraph db, but whenever I run this, it's gonna create a file called langgraph db, and that's our SQLite database, okay, file. And you can see the file right here, right? Awesome. So this file is what we're going to be using to persist our memory. Okay, and we can go ahead and connect to maybe a bigger database like Postgres or Supabase or any other MongoDB or any other kind of database if you want to. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm going to go ahead and create a checkpointer. So copy this, and I'm going to paste this right here. So from langgraph.checkpoint.sqlite, you're going to import the SQLite saver, because you're using an SQLite database. There are also other savers that you can take a look into. And let me know if you want me to create a video on those too. So I'm going to go ahead and create the memory, which is going to be an instance of the SQLite server. Okay, awesome. So once we have this done, we can go ahead and simply create our graph. That's all we need to establish connection with our SQLite database. So now that we have this done, you're going to create a simple graph that you're going to be using for demonstration purposes. So let's go ahead and create okay, we'll come back to the checkpointer just in a bit, but let's move on to creating the graph. And to create the graph, we'll need a couple of things. So let me just go in here and then add in another comment. So graph creation, just like that, and that's all we need to do. So once we have this done, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that you have, I'm going to be using Anthropic. So we're going to do pip install langchain hyphen Anthropic. So that's what you need to run this command to install Anthropic, because I'm going to be using Anthropic in this video. Okay, so make sure you also have an Anthropic key within your environment variable. I already have Anthropic key already done, so I already loaded in, so I don't have to actually load that Anthropic key anymore. Okay, so I need to also actually load in my environment variable. So how do I do that? So I need to go ahead and also load in my environment variable. So I'm going to go ahead and open this right here, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this code which we are using to load in our environment variable. So make sure you have Anthropic installed. In my case, I already have Anthropic installed, so make sure that you also have Anthropic installed in your case. Okay, so let me load in my environment variables. Awesome. So once my environment variables are loaded in, I can proceed ahead and create a chat model. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say from langchain dot anthropic, I'm going to go ahead and import chat Anthropic, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and simply say LLM, or you can say model if you want to. I'm going to say LLM equals to chat Anthropic, and then finally go ahead and pass in a couple of things. So we're going to pass in the model name, and we're going to use Claude 3 sonnet, yeah, 3 hyphen sonnet hyphen 2024, and then 00229. So that's the model name. I hope I didn't get any typos in there. Okay, so once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and say the temperature. You can specify all this if you want. So temperature, I'm going to leave it to be 0. I'm going to say max tokens. Again, these are just settings that you can say. So max tokens, and I'm going to leave that to be 1024. Okay, max tokens. And I'm going to also say timeout, and you can specify all this if you want. So timeout, let's say none, and then we can specify also the max iteration. So max retries, and you can say max retries would be 2. So let's run that, and that's going to go ahead and create for us our Anthropic chat model. Once we have the Anthropic chat model created, I'm going to go ahead and create the state. So this is going to be create state, graph state. So to create a graph state, it's just going to be the same as you have done so far throughout the course. So I'm going to say LangGraph dot graph. I'm going to go ahead and import the message state, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and create a class right here. I'm going to call it state, and it's going to inherit from the message state that we just have. The only difference is going to be having the summary field, and we explained all this in the last video, so I'm not going to go into depth about that. So once we do this, you're going to have two fields: the message field that is going to be inherited from this class, and the summary field that we created ourselves in here. So messages field and the summary field. Okay, so once we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and simply create the bunch of nodes that we need. So basically, it's going to be creating the nodes. Okay, so to create the nodes, it's going to be very similar to what you have done in the last video, basically. So I can even go in here, find the running summary, bring it all the way in here, and I can just go ahead and actually copy these nodes right here, because it's the same nodes that you're going to be using. Nothing new, nothing new. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste it over here. I'm just going to go ahead and run that to import a couple of packages. We talked about this in the last video. We already have our chat model, created already, so I'm going to skip this part, and I'm going to go ahead and import this as well for generating the running summaries. and then run this. It is just a Python function that you're going to be using as our node function. And you're going to copy this. It's going to be the function that is going to be calling the LLM itself, or the invoking the chat model. And then I'm going to go ahead and once we have those two things done, I'm going to go ahead and import this. And then we're going to actually create our actual graph. So this is going to be creating actual graph. So this is going to creating actual graph, just like that, and paste that in here. So once I have that pasted in there, I'm just going to go ahead and let's continue with this. Okay, so once I have that loaded in there, I'm going to go ahead and simply copy this. So this is going to be, again, you've talked about this in the last video, deciding when to call the summarization node, or when to not call the summarization node. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go over this very quickly because we already discussed this in the last video. So let's go ahead and actually build the graph now. So building the graph, just like that. So go in here, paste this in here, and then run this. Okay, so once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and simply copy this. You're actually building the graph itself, and you have talked about all this in the last video. It's just the same thing. That's why I'm just copy pasting the stuff, right? And from there, we can go ahead and actually visualize this thing. So let's import this again. So let's visualize it. So let's add a bit of service visualization of the graph components. So visualization of the graph, run this, bring in these imports in here, and then I can run that as well. And then once we have this, we can actually finally visualize this graph. And again, it's gonna be the same thing, right? So it's nothing new. I'm just showing you that we can actually make it more persistent. So this is our graph right here. We go in a conversation which calls the chat model, and then we can conditionally go in here or conditionally go to the end. So we go in here if the length of the converse of the length of the messages field of our state is more than 6. We go in there, we generate a running summary, and then reduce the size of that message to be 2, and then end. Or we just go in here in case the length is less than 6, and this is being controlled by this right here, right? So this is it right here, and you can read through it and see how we are generating the summary and how we are limiting the message only to the last 2, just to keep the short memory manageable and small. Okay, so that's basically what we have so far. So we have created our simple graph right there, and we have visualized it. So now once you are done with that, we are going to go back in here and create our checkpoint, or creating our thread. So I'm going to go in here, add a bit of messages. We're going to be creating our thread. It's going to be keeping track of our memory, right? So we're going to go in here and simply say config. We're going to create a config variable, and it's going to be equals to a list. You're going to say configuration, and configuration is going to have the following. So it's going to have another dictionary, which is going to have a thread within it, and then the thread ID, and the thread ID as a key, and its value can be anything. So in this case, I'm going to be using the value 1, okay, as a string of 1. So configuration, not configuration, configurable. Sorry, my bad. So configurable is a key to whose value is another dictionary. Within that dictionary, we have a key called thread ID, whose value is just anything, which is string. In this case, I'm using 1 as a string. So once we have this done, we can actually begin to start our message. Let me just copy this in here, so just to save us time. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy it, bring in this right here. So bring this in, and we can go ahead and actually start conversation. So let me add in some comment here. Start conversation. Okay, so paste that after I've copied, paste it in here. We have a human message saying, hello, I am Prince, how are you? And then we're going to go ahead and simply invoke our graph with that human message and that configuration, which is going to be keeping track of our memory. So in this case, our memory is going to be saved within our database right here. So let me try to open this database. So right now you can see it's empty, has nothing within it. Okay, so let me just close the side panel. You can see it's empty, has nothing within it. Let me run this, and let's see what we get back. So is the AI response, hello Prince, I'm doing well, thank you for asking. Right, so we do that, and if I go back in here, refresh this, let me see if I can see just close this and then try to open it again. So open that again, and then refresh this. Okay, no memory being saved in here for now. Okay, let me just see. So there's no memory being saved in here for now. Let me see if we have specified the right memory to be used in our graph here. No, so you're not specifying the right memory. So I need to go ahead and specify the memory which we want to use. So let me go in here, find that memory variable. This is this, copy that, and move back all the way here. So there's an ambulance passing around. So sorry for that noise. So let me rerun everything, create a thread again, and then try to run everything again. Okay, so it responded right here. Let's open this, refresh this. Okay, still no memory showing up here. So let me see if I did everything right. Okay, so memory cost memory, and yeah, everything seems okay. Okay, so let me run this again. Let's see if it doesn't show, then I would have to maybe try to change the memory ID and see if okay. Nothing still shows. So let me close this up. I'm going to set a new memory ID. So let me change the memory ID to be, let's say 2. And let's run this, and see if it updates the memory. Okay, it says hello prince. Let's go over here. And still I can't see really any table right here being specified. Okay, so let me try to trace and debug this and see where I probably made an error and see if we can fix that error. Okay, so check pointer, let's just go over here. So just delete this. Okay, the reason why this happened is that we created this variable which overrides that exists, the new one the one which we had above. So let me just get rid of this, and let me start all over again from here. So my bad for that. So let me create this memory instance again. So once it's created, now I can go down here and then recreate that graph again with that memory variable. Okay, so the first time we created another variable which was on this memory, it was overriding that. So let's go ahead and try again. And okay, it's responded. So let me go over ahead and refresh it. Now you can see it shows up here. Perfect. So you can see the message history right here, being everything being stored in here. So you can navigate, and you can see we have 2 different tables. You can expand these tables, and you can see it has these different rows. So we have we have all this, right? So you can have the checkpoint, the type, the metadata, and all those, the thread ID, and also you can see using a thread ID of 2, and you can see all the messages that's being saved in here for that specific thread ID. Okay, so you can just go ahead and try to navigate this and try to understand how this memory checkpoint works, how it keeps track of memory. Right, so everything, all the histories have been here, everything has been saved in there, right? So yeah, that's basically how this you can use you can persist memory. So right now, even if I shut down my notebook and reload it, once I have the correct thread ID specified, which is this one right here, it's still going to work because you're connecting the same database and you're reading the thread ID from memory, right? So that's basically how we can manage these thread IDs, right? Awesome. So that's basically it. And let's see how we can explore this further and try to play around this with this more and more. So I'm going to go back in here and we can try to continue this conversation to stimulate a real world conversation. And every time we do this, we're going to get memory being updated each time. So let me just cover here and let me just copy this just to stimulate a real conversation. So just to save on time, I'm just going to go ahead and paste the code in here, run this, and I'm going to copy this here as well. I want to see where we get a summary being generated and if that summary is being stored within our knowledge, basically our external memory. So let's try to get the summaries to see if any summary exists. Again, we have talked about this in the last video. There will be no summary because we haven't reached a length of 6 years, a length of 6, because our message length is less than 6. So now you can go ahead and continue this conversation, and eventually you hit a length of 6. Once you hit length of 6, now you should be able to see the different things about about memory, about the summary being generated. So let me copy this one more time, go back in here and just say paste it again, and then run this again, and we should get back a response. Now I want to go ahead and check my graph again, my graph state. I think I didn't mention my name in here. Did I mention? So what's my name? Chocolate. Okay, it doesn't seem to remember my name. He's really struggling to do that. But you can see it's being stored in here, right? So, but it's the AI is failing to get that history out. Okay, once we have that there, I'm going to go ahead and run this again. Now you can see the summary. Hello, a conversation so far, and then introduction yourself as Prince. I don't know why, if I introduce myself as Prince, then I don't know why it's failing to pick up my name. Anyway, yeah, you get the point. So okay, now that we have that, so oh, it actually said this, so it's actually pulling this from memory, but it's just failing to understand that my name is actually Prince. Okay, so that's basically how the summary has been generated, and you can check back in here again. You can refresh this, and you can see more history have been added in here. So you can see we have more and more stuff being added in here. So these are the checkpointers and stuff like that, and you can just click on these things and just try to inspect them and really see what each of this is pointing to, right? So we have the checkpoint IDs and all those, and then we have the thread IDs and all those settings right. Yeah, so that's basically it, and we have all the chat history being saved in here, right? So you can just play around with it, explore it, and you can see all the information being added in here, right? So you can see everything is being added in here, right? So yeah, so that's basically it, and that's how you can make your histories be persistent, right? So make it persistent, and you can retrieve information and examine the information. So you can see this is actually a blob, a text. So you can actually, this is actually a text right here. Sorry, this right here. So you actually just click on download, and let's see if we can. Yeah, so you can see this a message right here. So you can see the whole history. What's my name? Everything is being stored in here, right? So that's basically how all this information gets stored within the short-term memory, and that you can retrieve it anytime you want and continue your conversation, right? So if you're doing this in production, the only thing that you'll be changing is the thread ID, right? So and then storing that thread ID somewhere in a database in the having it associated with a given user. So once the user starts a new chat and the chat session, you check in the memory database and you retrieve that chat session, and then you use that as memory, right? As a memory configuration. So that's basically how you can work with the long term. Sorry, we can how we can work with long term memory. So now our data is persistent. Even if you shut down this notebook and bring it up again, it will still pick up the conversations previously because they're all being stored within our graph database right here. Sorry, our LangGraph.db SQLite database, and it's persistent, right? So you can connect to a bigger database like Postgres, something you can use in production, right? So you can do all that in here. Yeah, guys. So that's all I wanted us to talk about in this video: how to connect your code, your basically memory, to a more persistent layer, which in this case is an SQLite database. You can connect it to a more persistent layer like a Postgres or something, right? Much more better for production, right? So guys, that's all I wanted us to talk about in this video. I've already tested it out and make sure that everything works and our memory is being persisted over different conversations. So that's all I wanted us to talk about in this video. So this will just will do a simple wrap up on our conversation, managing our conversation. So in the next video, we can start looking at the human in the loop architecture. But before we go into the human in the loop architecture, I think it's really best if you go back to our customer support agent and apply all that you have learned regards to memory to our customer support agent. Once we apply that to a real world project, like how to manage memory in a real world project, then we can move on to something more advanced like human in the loop. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section below. That's just my plan. I have written here I'm going to be doing human in the loop, but giving it a second thought, I think it's really best if we take whatever we have learned about memory into practice before moving on to human in the loop, because I want this to be much of a practical course as much as possible rather than just theory. Okay, again, it's a bit practical, like you're already writing code, but it's just a playground most of the time, right? So now we have been building this customer support agent so far from the beginning, so we can use it, the new knowledge that you've learned on memory, to enhance this customer support agent. Yeah, so guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and you can connect with me, hopefully where you're watching this video on YouTube at Code with Prince. You can also find me on Medium at Prince Cramper, where I write articles about this content. You can also find me on Twitter, aka X, at Prince_Cramper. You can find me on LinkedIn if you have any project, if you have any suggestions, any questions, any ideas, you want us to collaborate on anything, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Prince Cramper. That's my LinkedIn page, and I'm much faster to respond to you on LinkedIn than any of the listed platforms down here. So reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any project, any suggestions, any questions, or you want us to collaborate on anything. Reach out to me on LinkedIn at Prince Crumper. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and well, one of the ways you can easily support the channel is by making this video, liking this video, right? We want this content to get to as much people as possible. So one of the easiest way you can support this vision is by liking the video, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this content with anyone who you think might find it helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.